Wendy Brockman, and welcome to Denver Decides. Denver Decides is a community partnership dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Interneighborhood Cooperation, Historic Denver, and is presented by Denver 8 TV. Today, we are presenting a candidate forum in anticipation of the municipal election coming up on Tuesday, May 7th. Among other offices, this election includes the candidates vying to represent District 3 as a member of Denver City Council. District 3 is located in West Central Denver. Our format is a pretty standard one. The candidates will have timed opening and closing statements. The opening statements will be followed by rounds of questions that have been submitted by the organizers of the forum and possibly from you in the audience. Since we do have a time limit, we may not get to all of the questions, but those we do ask will have to be answered by all of you, and all of your answers will be timed, and you can see our timers down here in front. So let's begin by meeting the candidates vying to represent District 3 as your next city council member. The candidates are seated left to right, facing the audience in the order that their names will appear on the May ballot. So beginning at my far right is Jamie Torres. Seated next to her is Veronica Barella, and on my left is Annie Martinez. And I want to mention there's a fourth candidate, Raymond Montoya, who was planning to be here, but there was a family situation that came up. So let's welcome our candidates to the forum, guys. We will begin with 1-minute opening statements from each of the candidates, and we will proceed in ballot order with these statements. So once again, starting at my far right, an opening statement from Jamie.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Torres. I am running for District 3, and I'm a proud born and raised resident of Villa Park in District 3. This is a neighborhood where my grandparents bought their first home, their only home, in the 1960s and raised their family. I have experienced in that neighborhood both balances of poverty, homelessness, but also intense community pride and joy and connection to one another. When I started working for the city, it was 2001, and I was in grad school, and it was for the Public Safety Review Commission, law enforcement oversight body of the city. I then developed in 2005 the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, where I've been working since. It's become a joy of mine to work for community and really get into solution building process alongside them.
And now we have a 1-minute opening statement from Veronica Barella.
Good morning still. I was born and raised in Loma Lincoln Park, and I have worked in District 3 my whole life. My life's work has included community development, supporting arts and culture, and championing civil rights. My tenure with Newstead Development Corporation can be seen firsthand with the successful community that is Loma Lincoln Park, Santa Fe Drive, and the Santa Fe Arts District. I intend to bring my experience, solid community principles, and my values to the table as I work with our residents to help build a complete kind of neighborhood that they need and want. I have experience to develop small businesses, help residents organize to help stem gentrification, to build coalitions to tackle climate change, to implement Vision Zero, to build new parks, to improve our public transportation access, and to place public health and people first. I wanted to thank Sam Sandoz, who was the council person. And
Veronica, your 60 seconds are up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Now we have an opening statement from Annie Martinez.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Annie Martinez, and I am running also to represent District 3. I'm a practicing attorney in Denver. I'm not a lifelong resident, however. I moved here about 5 years ago to kind of start my life in what I now consider my home, and I love Denver and I love the West Side. I'm a child of immigrants. My parents are immigrants from Cuba, and what I've learned is that throughout my life, even though it may be young, I understand through experience and professional experience, not just personal, a lot of the urgency that so many Denverites are living under right now, and how the status quo in City Hall isn't really cutting it to address these issues. But what I've also learned in the 5 years I've been out here and why I'm running is that Denver is not only large enough for everyone to survive, but prosperous enough for everyone to thrive. And that's why I'm fighting to run to make it a city to thrive for all.
Now we have our first question for the candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer, and we're going to start in reverse order from the opening statements and begin with Annie Martinez. Here's your first question. Interneighborhood Cooperation has requested a stay on the Denver Wright Comprehensive Plan until after the election. Do you support this request? Why or why not?
I do support the stay on the Denver Wright Plan. I do believe that having looked through it, there's some really great things in there, but I also believe that there's been sufficient callback from the community saying that they haven't had enough time to look at everything and that they haven't really been able to be at the table to impact it more. So I would be in agreement with halting that and waiting until after whoever gets elected is in, and then city groups can have more time to investigate and work with it more, because the community feels like they didn't have enough buy-in.
Veronica, same question. You have 1 minute.
I agree with Annie. The Denver Wright Plan hasn't addressed properly homelessness. It hasn't addressed properly gentrification, and it really needs to be reviewed more by the community, even if you have to go knock door to door and tell people about it. I think that they should postpone it for a while.
Jamie.
I'm in agreement. Denver Wright can wait. I think one of the things that we've seen in terms of feedback is that only about 20% of the respondents come from diverse communities, and I think we need to do better in terms of gathering some of that input. I don't think it's enough just to hold open forums. We've actually got to go where people are, especially in District 3, and make sure that we're language accessible and really tapping into the communities that we represent.
Our next question, and we're going to begin with Veronica. District 3 is made up of a lot of small businesses owned by minorities. What are your plans for continued growth for small business owners?
That's my strong background as business development. I helped revitalize Santa Fe Drive and ushered in many businesses, built 2 shopping centers. And both those shopping centers, Zocalo had 70% minority participation, and Plaza de Santa Fe had 60%. So I know how to usher in businesses. I've been working with the city to make their small business support office way stronger than it is. It kind of died down, and the revolving loan fund died down, and also the business support offices went away. You don't need to fix something if it's not broke or take it away. I really believe that these small business organizations need to come back, these small business offices, to help the businesses on all the commercial strips in 3, Morrison Road, Federal, Santa Fe Drive, Colfax, and all the little pockets of businesses that are in District 3.
Same question for Jamie.
There are commercial corridors in West Denver, some that are strong, some that could be strengthened, and I think there's an opportunity to have conversations with them about how to do that. When I staffed the Asian American Pacific Islander Commission several years ago, one of the things that we did was go door to door to businesses along South Federal and really try to understand, one, what some of their struggles are and maybe why they're not engaging with city contracts or economic development. And it's those conversations that really led us toward what's happening now in the development of New Saigon bid, but really also the relationship building with the city, which I don't think is there. I think we can do more to support back office structure of small businesses, and I am encouraged by the state's development of an employee-owned committee and commission to really try to encourage wealth development among employees in small business.
Annie.
I think that we could be doing more as a city to be fostering minority-owned businesses. I think that there is some effort that has existed, but I think there needs to be more deliberate task to it. So whether it be going out in the community, like Jamie mentioned, and reaching out to individuals and asking them what is holding them up. Is it licensing fees? Can we get them waived? Are there ways to implement also not necessarily the word quota, but more of an imperative upon the city to work with women and people of color when they're doing some of these contracts and bids, as well as also zoning areas for businesses. So I think what we really need to be looking at is having individuals that are going to take to task the issue of prioritizing those disenfranchised communities that don't normally get prioritized in the business sector.
I also want to remind everyone that Raymond Montoya is also on the ballot and was planning to be here, but he had a family situation and could not be here. All right, now the next question for our candidates, and we're going to begin with Jamie. There are very few grocery stores in District 3 within easy access to the residents. What are your plans to help residents bridge this gap?
Yeah, this is absolutely true. For a lot of the neighborhoods throughout District 3, we could be upwards of 3 miles from the nearest large grocery store. And that's simply unacceptable, especially if we prioritize healthy food options for our community, but we don't make them available. One of the things that I was a part of was developing the Fresh Food Fund, which helped encourage small corner stores to offer more fresh food in the absence of a large grocery store. I think there are a couple different conversations here to be had around how do we better support small grocers, especially locally owned grocers. And then there are 2 grocery stores in District 3. How do we make sure that they're holding and making available things that the residents want to get to on Florida and also on Spear. I know that folks throughout the neighborhoods go all the way to Belmar for their groceries, to Lakewood for their groceries. I think there are better ways that we can do this, and some of it is even incentivizing small business to do that better.
Thank you, Jamie. Your time is up. Annie, same question for you.
I think it goes back to just having the wherewithal to have the businesses brought there, whether we reach out to smaller grocers and help support them, that they can be stronger in where they're at, but also reaching out to some of these individuals that already exist and ask if they want to open a different shop in a different part of the neighborhood. And then if we're able to bring some of the businesses and some of the development that we see in West Denver that a lot of residents don't want, I don't understand how we can't get a grocer there. So I think maybe we just need to be trying a little harder to make it happen and do what needs to be done so that it's there, because it's unacceptable that individuals have to travel 3 miles or more to get to a grocery store.
Veronica.
Annie's so right. You need to organize and get these major chain grocery stores to be accountable to these inner city neighborhoods. Newstead was instrumental in bringing that King Soopers into Santa Fe Drive, into Lama Lincoln Park. You know, if people don't have access to food, to fresh fruits and vegetables, they'll go to convenience stores and eat processed food, which isn't good for them. We have Revision, which is a great food co-op. There's one on First Avenue, and there's a small grocery store on Knox Court, but we need a major chain in this community that serves all of District 3, and I think that we can make that happen. In fact, I know we can make that happen, because we just need to hold these grocery stores accountable, King Soopers, Safeway. I saw another grocery store on, I think it was Wadsworth, and I can't remember the name of it. It wasn't huge like a King Soopers, but it was it would be a nice fit into this neighborhood. Thank you.
Another question from our audience for our City Council District 3 candidates, and it is your turn to start, Annie. What will you do to improve the transportation desert in District 3, where there is no alternative transportation except for RTD?
Well, I think that the city is starting to address that by in creating its own Department of Transportation. I think it's a little late, but it's there now, and that's something that definitely any council person will have to work with to ensure that we're broadening the array of transportation options in Southwest Denver, I mean. We don't have any bike lanes really, and they're not well protected, so it doesn't incentivize people to use different modes of transportation either. So I think it has to be a holistic approach of, are we looking at means of transportation that are better for the environment and accessible to individuals of lower economic status, as well as increasing access to public transport, whether we create our own bus line, whether it be that we have our own light rail. Some of the stuff that works in 5 Points I think would be really great to bring to West Side Denver. I think that there's options that exist and we just have to go seek them out, but that would be a top priority to me, not only in terms of access for individuals in the community, but also for an environmental impact.
Veronica, same question.
It's interesting because our transportation in Denver doesn't really get people to where they need to go, and I think we need little 14-seater buses that help people get to the transportation they need. For example, where I live, if you need to get up to Alameda to catch a bus, you have to climb a little mountain over there, and for older people, that's almost impossible to do. And so I heard one of the debates here, and one of the council people called it a donut. And so we really, really need to work on making transportation accessible for everybody. From my house to the light rail, it's about a mile, maybe a block over a mile, and that's really way too far for people to have to walk in this kind of weather, or when we have the blizzards, or when they need to get to work. So RTD needs to come to the table in these neighborhoods and talk about how they're going to change these processes and make them better for residents in District 3.
Jamie, you are up next.
This is an amazing conversation, I think, because I have multiple transit options within my kind of walking distance of my house, and yet they're vastly different in terms of access and where they take me. And I think about a lot of the community that utilize the bus to get to grocery stores, who utilize the bus to get downtown. I'm close to the light rail, but I don't take it because it goes nowhere near where I need to be. And so conversations and real action, and putting our own effort behind some of our advocacy organizations like 9 to 5 and Mile High Connects, who have actively studied a lot of this transit option and opportunity, but have not had a lot of support, either from city or from political forces, to really get things moving for community. It was amazing that we were able to finally get back the bus line that came down Morrison Road. I think there could be a circulator conversation to get folks to transit, and it could even be
Your
community
time
owned.
is up. Apologize to interrupt. We have another question for you, and another reminder that Raymond Montoya, who is also on the ballot, was planning to be here but had a family issue. So this next question, we're going to begin with Veronica. What are the 3 biggest problems facing District 3 that you would pay immediate attention to if elected?
The 3 biggest ones, I think, are housing accessibility and gentrification moving in, particularly in Villa Park. That's the biggest concern I hear out there with people, is the displacement and the problems with not being able to stay in Denver. Over there, even by Sloan's Lake, I was talking to residents, and they're being displaced. They're going to have to move out of their duplexes next year, and they don't have anywhere to go. They don't have any money to go anywhere. So it's a huge problem. When I left NewSed, we had put 2,000 people in home ownership with down payment assistance and counseling. I think that's one of the solutions to that. That's part of my platform. Also, small business development is part of my platform. Small business development is critical because it creates jobs for residents in the community. And so that's one of my platforms, and I plan to do that. I'm out of
Jamie,
time.
you are up next.
One of the things, I've worked in city government for 18 years, and we've always struggled, I think, with access to programming and opportunity, especially in communities with limited access to internet or to news systems. And so, especially if I think for our lowest income communities, our seniors, we lack access to the programs that could actually help them economically and for stability. So, identifying those and identifying new ways of getting information to those residents becomes one of my first priorities. Language access becomes another one. I think we usually depend on community to provide their own language interpreters or another way to figure things out when it comes to public forums, and we can do better when it comes to that. The other one is really advocating for the city on current bond and infrastructure programs. So the things that District 3 stands to receive in terms of bond commitments include library renovations, rec centers.
Your time is up, Jamie. Next up is Annie.
So my 3 biggest points that I would argue are affecting District 3 the most would be, and that I would be fighting from day one, would be to curb gentrification as a whole, to increase housing access, and then to also increase quality of life. I think we need to recognize that gentrification and growth are not the same thing, and that gentrification rightfully requires displacement of the community, and it's a deliberate effort to displace our most disenfranchised. So once we recognize that we need to halt that, and what we need to be doing is making sure that our community is still part of any growth and development that occurs, that's the first thing I would tackle. Then increasing housing access, which is parallel and related, but not necessarily only part of gentrification. gentrification, right? That's a problem in the West Side. We need to keep people in their homes. We need to help support them to be able to stay there. And then we also need to have access to more affordable housing. And then increasing quality of life would involve a lot of the things we've talked about today. More access to services, parks, transportation, and grocery stores.
We're doing great on time, ladies, so we're going to have a bonus question. We're going to start with Jamie. If elected, what would be your big, audacious goal for District 3 in the next 4 years?
One of the things that always stunned me about District 3's history was the hit that we took when it came to home ownership. And in 2007, CNN reported that we were third in the country for foreclosures. That was a stunning hit to especially Latino-owned communities who lost wealth building opportunity. So one of the biggest things that I would be looking at is making sure that we're making folks economically competitive. So that's increasing their own credit score, making them aware of different programs that can help them own homes, and really make those happen for residents throughout West Denver.
All right, Veronica, something audacious.
In addition to housing, which I have done all my life, and it's really important that people have the opportunity to affordable rental units and affordable housing, that's always going to be part of me. But I really would like to see a grocery store coming in these neighborhoods. And so that would be my audacious goal, is to try to get a grocery store in District 3, smack in the middle of it, so it has access to everybody. And people could even ride their bikes there.
Okay, Annie?
My audacious goal for District 3, and I guess Denver as a whole, would be to institute a public bank, and then to use that public bank to do community land trust housing. So some of that could be either homes, some of that could be units like apartment buildings or townhomes, but I think that we need to bring our money as a city to ourselves and invest in ourselves, and I think a public bank allows us to do that. And then from there, we can do a lot of support in the community that we really need, like getting these housing units built and grocery stores in there and supporting businesses and people of color.
All right, ladies, it's time for the lightning round, in which our candidates will be asked to answer several short questions with a simple yes, no, or pass. No expanding beyond that, okay? So we'll return to ballot order and begin with Jamie Torres and then go right down the ballot order. Remember, only yes, no, or pass. Are you guys ready?
Ready?
Are you in favor of safe injection sites?
Yes.
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 Do you currently own or do you plan to own an electric car?
No.
Maybe.
Maybe?
Yes, no, or pass. Have you ridden or used a rental scooter or bike for business or fun in the last 6 months?
No.
No.
Yes.
Do you believe that Denver is a world-class city?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Have you ever missed the opportunity to vote in a local, regional, or national election?
No.
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 Do you see a new political party forming in Denver around anti-growth?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you live in a freestanding home, do you shovel the snow off your front sidewalk after a storm?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Do you believe that historic preservation efforts have helped make Denver a livable and appealing city?
Yes.
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 Have you recently done any volunteer work in your neighborhood or elsewhere in the city?
Yes.
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 Do you support Initiative 300, the Right to Survive initiative?
No.
Yes.
Heck yes.
What was that?
Heck yes.
Okay. Was the salary and benefit package that comes with the job of being on city council a factor in your deciding to run for office?
No.
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 Well done. Let's give them a hand for the lightning round. All right, now we get to do some one-on-one questions. So it's the candidates' turn to ask questions of each other. So each of you will select one of your opponents and ask them a question. Hopefully they will have an answer for you. We will go in ballot order again. So Annie, you may ask one of your opponents a question, and they will have 1 minute to answer.
All right, so this question will be for Jamie. So a lot of individuals have asked, especially of me, how would I be able to work with others because of my very left-leaning politics? But polls and studies are showing that the vast majority of individuals agree that some socialist form of government is better than capitalism, and that that's really where the youth are headed right now, including millennials that I fall in, right? So how would you work with individuals in city council and in the city that are really moving far more left than maybe some of the status quo is ready to work with?
I would argue that some of the status quo isn't opposed to working with larger left communities. I've been in the Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships for 18 years, and I would say that everyone in that agency is an activist, is an advocate for community representation. And so we've made it a point to ensure that typically unheard voices are at the table, and we're fighting for that. And that's the advantage that we have in the city, that we are able to hear voices that typically are not represented. And that's the thing that we fight for, because when you really distill down input from community that doesn't have that voice, then it doesn't work.
Veronica, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask Jamie, I'm sorry. I was going to ask Jamie about what she thinks about the role the Denver Partnership should play. I mean, for example, there are several kind of issues with the Denver Partnership. They worked with other groups to come up with $1.5 million to fight 300. That money could be better spent, helping the homeless, helping the shelters, and their connect to the neighborhoods is dismal, and their fight against keeping affordable housing downtown has not been good, and I was just wondering what she thinks about the Denver Partnership.
And you mean the Denver Downtown Partnership?
Yeah, the Downtown
Okay.
Denver Partnership.
Yeah, when I met with them, one of the things that I made very clear was, especially when it comes to the homeless community and the issues that we deal with homelessness, we've all got to do better at coming to the table for solutions around that. It can't just be, you can't be here. It's got to be, where else can we put you? Whether that's a home, whether that's a shelter. There's an expanded shelter plan that needs to be funded, and it needs to be done immediately. Shelters have to be available 24/7. They've got to be more accessible to folks who may need some flexible options, including our LGBTQ community, communities with disabilities and those with service animals, those that might serve couples or families. My family was homeless for a year, and we weren't on the street. We were bouncing from friends and families' homes until we got Section 8 housing. So it is everyone coming to the table. It does infuriate me that over $1 million has been raised to defeat something. It should be going into a solution.
Jamie, it is now your turn to ask a question.
Sure. My question is to Annie. One of the things, especially as a lifelong resident and you as a newcomer, you've talked about Denver fighting for its soul. What do you think our soul is?
I would say that I think the soul of Denver represents the average working class individual who wants to build a better life for themselves. And I don't mean that in a cheesy way, right? I think that Denver has been a city that people have moved to, but also has been a city that's changed. The border crossed it. We have lifelong residents that have been here for centuries, right? And, their families. So I think what the concern to me is that current growth that's been unfettered and the gentrification that's been going on is going to turn Denver into like a soulless Airbnb capital. And we're only going to be able to take care of this upper echelon of the wealthy, and everyone else will be displaced out. And those are the people that make the soul of Denver. People like us, people like the individuals in this room right now. And a lot of us will not get to stay in Denver if we continue on the track that we're on, and that's what I worry about.
All right, we have another round of one-on-one questions. So Annie, do you have a question for someone?
Sure. I have a question for Veronica. My handwriting is really bad, sorry. Would you be supportive of democratizing more industries, for example, having municipal broadband? What's your take on deprivatizing some of these areas that some people see as commodities? Would you want to centralize them with the city, like municipal broadband?
I'm a big advocate of not privatizing some things. You know, for example, RTD. I didn't think they should have privatized RTD, and as a result of it, you know, we would have better bus service if they hadn't done that. So, and I'm also a big fan of regulatory kind of issues, particularly when it comes to banking. I really was involved in the Community Reinvestment Act and the HUM debate around the redlining in the lending institutions. In fact, I sat on the Federal Reserve Board for the Consumer Advisory Council and really pushed for a study in the pre-application stage to approve lending. So I really do not like privatization a lot, and I would be in favor of that.
Veronica, it is your turn to ask a question.
Oh boy, I don't get any more. What? I don't know if you've read the housing plan for the city and county of Denver.
Who is this directed to?
Jamie.
Okay.
And I was wondering if you see any flaws in it. That's the most recent plan that came out for from the mayor's housing advisory committee and the housing OED.
Sure. I have, though initially when it came out. I think flaws, I think it's incredibly aspirational. The flaw may be whether or not we can accomplish it all. And who we're going to be prioritizing. I don't think we've built in necessarily a full equity model into it. So whether or not it's going to look at vulnerable neighborhoods first, or how it's going to prioritize which access points are going to be prioritized. That I think I didn't catch in there, especially now that the mayor's created an equity platform. But the city has often had to be called to the carpet for walking the talk when it comes to looking at its own access and vulnerability index and putting investment in projects into those spaces first.
Jamie, you may ask a question.
Great. So this one's to Veronica, especially since I think the work that you've done via NewSed for Santa Fe Drive could also be described as having gentrified some of that area as well. What do you propose in terms of the rest of the district in revitalization that decreases displacement?
To decrease in displacement, you have to bring in the community to discuss these issues, and you have to bring in the community with developers from the ground up. It can't happen. You know, the city can't come in and developers can't come in and say, oh, we have this great plan, please okay it. I don't think I'm responsible for gentrifying Loma Lincoln Park or Santa Fe Drive. The gentrification has permeated all of Denver. And I don't think any one person is responsible for it, so I won't take responsibility for that. But I think it's really critical, you know, when the city hauls all of us in to talk about, you know, the problem with gentrification is it too little, too late, and they show you the map of the city and all the neighborhoods, particularly the inner city neighborhoods that are prime for gentrification. There's a problem at the city level that needs to be taken care of, and not with Veronica Barela, but with the mayor's office and the administration.
All right, we'd also like to mention again, Raymond Montoya is also on the ballot and was planning to be here, but he had to cancel at the last minute. You ladies will have one more opportunity to ask each other a question, and we're going to start with Veronica.
Annie, what is your thought about how you can build a stronger business community in District 3, particularly along Morrison Road and working with BID on Colfax and Buku on Morrison Road, and particularly helping the minority businesses along Federal Boulevard?
I think that it has to be a deliberate and conscientious effort to do so. So I think whether we're looking at business grants, whether we're looking at incubators that help people foster their businesses before they go out, and then we support them and help them find spaces, whether we have public banking that owns property where we can lease them spaces at a lower rate because it's not a private building, right? And we can support these individuals to be able to have a business and actually keep it open and keep it afloat. I think that there's a lot of ways we can do that. I think it just needs to be a very deliberate effort to do so.
Annie, do you have a question?
I only prepared two, so, right? I think our email said two. I'm just put that out there.
It's
But,
a bonus.
It's a bonus. The lawyer in me, I can't handle it. Oh, this will be fun. Can I ask both of them the same question?
Just
No?
one.
All right, Jamie, what's your position on the psilocybin initiative?
I'm against it.
Okay.
All right, ladies, it's time for our closing. Oh, that's right, Jamie, you get one more question. Do you have one?
Oh, sure. This one's for Annie. There are a number of development projects that are slated for District 3. I'm interested in what your level of engagement has been on them.
In terms of reaching out or, well, I go to a lot of the neighborhood association meetings. I read up on what reports get written. I check the websites. I'm also reading what the proposals are. So I do try to stay informed on these issues and read up on them. It's a lot of reading to do, and it's a lot of community engagement, but I'm out in the community a lot for different reasons, and sometimes I just multitask it. I might be at Mi Casa doing legal clinics, but then talking to individuals about well, what are you worried about in your neighborhood? And, do you think that the plans that are coming are gonna be a benefit for you? So I try to stay involved, at least informed, definitely.
Each candidate will now have 1 minute for a closing statement, and we start with Annie Martinez.
1 minute, okay. So again, I'm Annie Martinez, running for District 3. I am just really excited to be able to run and represent what I believe is a new wave of individuals trying to represent their cities and fight for the soul of their homes. I am running because I believe that I bring forward a lot of really bold ideas and the wherewithal to get them done, but also with my professional experience as an attorney, working with multiple groups of multiple needs, I know how to bring these groups to the table and figure out what's in the best interest for the collective and try to get us all there. So I think that I really bring some fresh perspective and also the ability to carry it through. And I'm just asking that you maybe look more about me, read me up a little bit, and that I can earn your vote in May. Thank you.
With her 1 minute closing statement is Veronica Barella.
I trust that the community can see that I have the experience to lead District 3, and together we can build a better neighborhood, a complete neighborhood that the residents want to see. We have serious issues in District 3, rising rents for residents and business owners, the housing shortage, the need for entry-level home ownership that helps build wealth in our communities, stagnant wages, air and water quality concerns, climate change and emergency planning, a desperate need for affordable and safe transportation options. We need new parks, and we need to improve our existing parks. We have large development plans that must include the community voices. My whole life, I've worked for you and the community, and together we built a strong Lama Lincoln Park that has served as a national model for inclusive development. Help me bring these principles to all of District 3, because I will lead with integrity and work for you.
Now it is our audience's turn to show appreciation. Oh, Jamie would like a closing statement. Hold your applause.
I get 3 minutes, just kidding. Thank you, everybody. It has truly been a joy of mine to work for the city of Denver for almost 20 years because of the work that we've been able to do and really elevate community-based issues to a level of solution and impact. One of the things that has motivated me throughout this process, but throughout my life, is who are we doing this work for, and reminding of ourselves of who our target is. And that for me is my grandmother who lives at 10th and Lowell, my husband and I, our family and neighbors who are raising their families. Denver District 3 really stands to be this shining beacon for how community can come together, finding a balance between development and opportunity for any income, any language, any background, any country of origin. We have done that, we're doing that, and we can continue to do that and really be a shining light for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie Torres. Now it's the audience's turn to show appreciation for our candidates for their participation. Thank you to all of you. And our thanks to Denver Decides partners, which include Interneighborhood Cooperation, the League of Women Voters of Denver, Historic Denver, and Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. We hope we've given you a fair look at each candidate vying to represent those of you here in District 3 on Denver's City Council. For complete election information online, you can go to denverdecides.com. I'm Wendy Brockman. Thanks for joining us.